Whose child is that, Elara? It was not a question. It was an accusation, delivered with a voice she barely recognized. The words, sharp and cold, sliced through the quiet warmth of their New York apartment. Elara froze, her hand still on the doorknob, a small, hopeful smile just moments from forming on her lips. She had been rehearsing the announcement for hours. She had imagined this exact moment, his return from the auto shop, the way his eyes would widen, the way the distance that had grown between them for months might finally, close. She had a small, celebratory dinner waiting in the kitchen, a meal she couldn't really afford but had splurged on anyway. Before we see what Elara does next, make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on. You will not want to miss the moment her world changes forever. She turned slowly, her heart a cold stone in her chest. Marcus stood in the entryway, framed by the dim hallway light. He was swaying, just slightly. The acrid smell of hard liquor rolled off him, potent and suffocating. It was not the scent of a man who had 1 or 2 beers after work. This was the smell of a man who had spent hours soaking in poison. His eyes, normally a warm hazel, were dark, flat, and filled with a terrifying, unrecognizable rage. He looked at her not as his wife, but as a stranger. An enemy. Elara's hand instinctively drifted from the doorknob down to her stomach, a protective gesture she hadn't even realized she had adopted. The ultrasound photo, tucked safely in her purse, suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Just 4 hours ago, she had been in a darkened room at the hospital where she worked, her own heart pounding in her ears as she watched a tiny, flickering pulse on the monitor. A heartbeat. Real. Hers. Theirs. She was a nurse. She saw life and death every single day, but this was different. This was a miracle, a fragile hope she had been desperately clinging to. What did you say? She managed to whisper, her throat tight. Do not play dumb with me, Elara. He took a step into the room, kicking the door shut behind him with a crash that made her flinch. I know everything. I know what you have been doing. Whose is it? The cold that had started in her chest instantly spread, a creeping ice paralyzing her limbs. She felt her mind racing, trying to catch up with the sheer insanity of his words. This was not the man she had married. The man she married was kind, ambitious, and full of laughter. The man she married was the one she had believed in so fiercely that she had worked double shifts for 3 years, draining her own savings, to fund the down payment on his precious auto shop. That man had faded over the last year, replaced by this colder, distant version who spent more time with his new, glamorous friend, Jessica, than he did with his own wife. Elara had told herself it was just the stress of the business. She had told herself he was just tired. She had been wrong. Marcus, you are drunk. Her nurse's voice tried to take over, calm and rational, but a tremor ran through it. I do not know what you are talking about. I went to the doctor today. I was going to tell you at dinner. I am pregnant. Marcus. It is yours. It is ours. She tried to see the man she loved inside the monster in front of her, searching his eyes for any flicker of recognition, of shared history, of the 5 years they had built. She found nothing. There was only the blank, terrifying influence of someone else's words, Jessica's words. The manipulative, venomous lies that had clearly been whispered in his ear until they became his truth. He had been convinced that Elara, the woman who had sacrificed everything for his dream, was unfaithful. And the baby, the tiny, innocent life she was already so fiercely protecting, was not his. Liar. He spat the word. It hit her harder than a physical blow. You think I am stupid. You think I did not know, you walking around here, thinking you are so much better than me. You probably found some doctor at that hospital, did not you? No, Marcus, stop it. That is insane. She took a step back, her hand pressed flat against her abdomen. The fear was no longer a cold paralysis. It was a living thing, hot and sharp, flooding her body with adrenaline. He was not listening to reason. He was not capable of it. He was blinded by a fiction she had no part in writing. I am done with your lies. He stalked past her, into the narrow hallway that led to the bedrooms. Elara's eyes followed him, confused, until she saw him stop. He reached down and his hand closed around a heavy piece of scrap wood, a 2x4 that had been left over from a shelf she had asked him to fix 3 weeks ago. He had never gotten around to it. Her breath hitched. The reality of the situation crashed down on her. This was not an argument. This was a threat. Marcus, her voice was a bare thread. Put that down, please. You are scaring me." He turned, and the man was gone completely. Only the rage remained. He raised the plank of wood. "You are the one who should be scared." She recoiled in pure terror, her arms flying up to shield her face, her body instinctively twisting to put her back and shoulder between the weapon and her stomach. "Please, Marcus. No, the baby. Please, I am begging you." He swung. The wood connected with her shoulder with a sickening, wet crack. An explosion of pure, white-hot agony burst behind her eyes. The force was stunning, lifting her off her feet and sending her crashing sideways into the wall. She crumpled to the floor, the pain a deafening roar in her ears. She could not breathe, she could not think. There was only the impact, the shattering of bone, and the overwhelming, primal scream in her soul to protect her child. She landed hard on her hip, her hands curled desperately around her lower stomach, trying to form a shield. Through the haze of pain, she heard him breathing heavily, like an animal. She tried to cry out, but only a choked sob escaped. Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the dust on the hardwood floor. She could feel her shoulder throbbing with a pain so deep it made her nauseous. But beneath the pain, a deeper, colder terror was settling in. He had actually done it. He had hit her. Her vision began to swim, black spots dancing in front of her eyes. The room tilted. As her consciousness started to fray, one sound managed to cut through the fog. It was not Marcus' voice. It was distant, muffled by the apartment walls. It was their neighbor, Mr. Henderson, his voice booming with panic. "I heard that. I heard her scream. I am calling 911, Marcus. I am calling the police." The last thing she registered before the darkness, consumed her entirely, was the sound of the heavy wood clattering to the floor, and Marcus's voice, suddenly laced with a pathetic, sobered panic. "Oh God, Elara." But it was too late. The call had been made, and Elara, slipping into unconsciousness, had just become the one thing her enemies would never, ever survive, a victim with nothing left to lose. Elara's world returned not all at once, but in fragmented shards of agony and sound. The first sensation was a dull, throbbing weight in her shoulder, a deep, sickening ache that seemed to pulse in time with the wail of a distant siren. The siren grew closer, louder, until she realized it was not distant at all. It was screaming all around her. She felt a rhythmic jostling, the hard surface of a gurney beneath her back, and the prick of an IV needle in the back of her hand. Her eyes fluttered open, but the flashing red and blue lights that sliced through the dark cab of the ambulance made her squeeze them shut again. An oxygen mask was strapped to her face, its plastic cold against her skin, smelling faintly of antiseptic. She tried to move her left arm, but a bolt of white-hot, blinding pain shot from her collarbone down to her fingertips, tearing a muffled groan from her throat. "Easy, ma'am. Don't try to move." A voice, calm and professional, came from somewhere above her. "You have significant trauma to your left shoulder. We've immobilized it." Elara's mind, foggy with shock, tried to latch onto the words. Trauma, immobilized, but her focus was hijacked by a more primal, terrifying sensation. A dull, ominous cramping was beginning deep in her abdomen. It was a feeling she had never experienced before, and her medical training supplied a dozen terrible possibilities in an instant. "My baby." She did not realize she had spoken the words aloud until the EMT beside her leaned in. "Ma'am, you're pregnant." It was a statement, not a question. "You're about 10 weeks, we estimate from the information your neighbor gave. We're taking you to New York General. It's the closest level 1 trauma center." "My hospital," she thought, a new wave of nausea rising in her. Then the fear truly took hold, an icy hand squeezing her heart. "The baby, please. Is my baby okay? I am cramping." Her voice was a raw, desperate rasp. She felt a hand on her good arm. "We're doing everything we can. Just hold on. We'll be there in 2 minutes." But Elara's mind had detached from the EMT. It had detached from the pain in her shoulder and the siren in her ears. She retreated deep inside herself, to the one place that mattered. Her hand, the one not pierced by an IV, moved with agonizing slowness until it rested on her stomach. "Just hold on, little one. Be strong for mommy. Please, just be strong. Do not leave me. Please." The ambulance doors swung open, and the chaos of the ER bay swallowed her. The transition was a blur of noise and light. She felt the gurney click and lock, the sudden, jarring roll over the metal plate into the trauma bay. 33-year-old female, Gone Pizzero, At approximately 10 weeks, victim of assault, blunt force trauma to the left clavicle and torso. Vitals are stable, but she's in severe pain and reporting abdominal cramping. The words were clinical, detached, a script she herself had heard 1,000 times. But now, they were about her. The fluorescent lights of the trauma bay were blindingly bright, sterile, and cruel. She heard the snip 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 of trauma shears cutting away her clothes, her favorite sweater, her maternity panel scrubs. The cold air hit her skin, and with it came a profound, unbearable sense of violation and shame. Then, a familiar face swam into her vision. It was Sarah, one of the best trauma nurses on the floor, a woman with whom Elara had shared countless gallows humor jokes over coffee in the dead of night. Sarah's eyes, usually so full of humor and exhaustion, went wide. Her mouth opened, closed, and then opened again. "Oh my God." The whisper was choked, horrified. "It's Elara. It's Elara. Get Dr. Chen in here, now. And get me a portable ultrasound. Stat." The look in her friend's eyes, that raw mixture of disbelief and profound pity, was a new kind of violation. She was no longer Elara, the competent, respected colleague. She was a case, a specimen, a broken thing to be fixed. She squeezed her eyes shut, unable to bear the looks on her friends' faces, as they worked, their professional masks firmly in place, but their eyes betraying the shock of seeing one of their own so brutalized. Hundreds of miles away, in 3 different cities, the lives of 3 of the most powerful men in the country came to an abrupt, violent halt. In Chicago, Julian, the eldest brother, stood in a 64th floor boardroom overlooking the glittering city. He was a real estate mogul, a man who did not just build skyscrapers but rearranged skylines. He was in the final, tense hour of a multi-billion-dollar acquisition, his gaze fixed on the opposing CEO. His private phone, the one only his family and his most senior assistant could ring, vibrated once on the polished mahogany table. He saw the New York General Hospital number and a cold dread, heavy and absolute, settled over him. He excused himself with a curt nod, stepped into his private adjoining office, and took the call. He listened for exactly 45 seconds, his face hardening from a mask of shrewd business into one of pure granite. He did not raise his voice. He did not curse. He simply walked back into the boardroom, picked up his briefcase, and looked at the room full of stunned lawyers. "The deal is off. My family needs me." He walked out, leaving a billion-dollar negotiation to collapse in his wake. In a penthouse office in Boston, Sebastian, the second brother and a wizard of high finance, was analyzing market projections. His mind was a fortress of cold calculation, tracking algorithms and global trade winds. The call came to his direct line. As he listened, the laptop he was holding slipped from his grasp, shattering on the Italian marble floor. His mind, usually so orderly, was consumed by a singular, blinding rage that turned his blood to ice. He was on the phone to his pilot before the laptop screen had even gone dark, his voice a low, terrifying command. "Ready the jet. We are leaving for New York. 10 minutes." His team, accustomed to his demanding nature, had never heard this tone. It was not the voice of a boss. It was the voice of a predator. And in Austin, at a glittering black tie gala, Adrian, the youngest, a tech CEO whose software innovations had made him a legend before he was 30, was charming investors. He was the passionate one, the charismatic one, the one who still had a fire in his eyes. His phone buzzed with an urgent text from Sebastian. "Call me, now. It's Elara." He stepped onto a moonlit balcony, the sounds of the party fading behind him. When he dialed, Sebastian answered on the first ring and delivered the news with brutal efficiency. The champagne glass in Adrian's hand did not just fall, he crushed it. Shards of glass embedded themselves in his palm, blood welling, but he did not register the pain. He did not feel the sting. He simply turned, his face pale with a fury so profound it was almost silent, and walked through the party, leaving a thin trail of blood behind him. He found his assistant by the door. He touched her. Within an hour, all 3 men were airborne, their separate flight paths converging on one single point, New York. 3 apex predators, drawn by the blood of their own, united by a cold, protective fury that could, and would, move mountains. Elara awoke to the steady, quiet beep of a heart monitor. The world was blessedly fuzzy, the edges softened by pain medication. The sharp, shattering agony in her shoulder had settled into a heavy, managed throb. A thick bandage and a sling held her arm immobile, strapped securely against her chest. But her first conscious thought, her only thought, was not for herself, Her free hand, the one not attached to an IV drip, flew to her stomach. Her doctor, a kind woman who had been Elara's OBGYN for years, was sitting by the bed, her expression grim but gentle. "Elara." Dr. Chen's voice was soft, pulling her from the fog. "You are lucky. The baby is lucky." Elara's breath caught, her heart stopping, waiting. "You have a severely fractured left clavicle that will require surgery, and 3 broken ribs on your right side. But the ultrasound shows the baby is fine. The heartbeat is strong. 155. You did your job, Elara. You protected your child." Elara broke. The dam of her shock, her terror, her agony, finally burst. The tears she had held back since the moment Marcus had spoken those first cruel words erupted in a flood of gut-wrenching, silent sobs that racked her injured body, each gasp sending a fresh stab of pain from her broken ribs. But it was a cleansing pain. The baby was safe, but her life, her marriage, the world she had believed in, was utterly, irrevocably shattered. The following days were a blur of dull pain, orthopedic consults, police reports, and the quiet, heavy sympathy of her colleagues. They would come in, pat her good hand, and tell her to rest, their eyes full of a pity she found suffocating. But as her physical wounds began to mend, a new, insidious poison began to seep into her isolation. Whispers. She heard them from the orderlies in the hallway. She saw the way some of the staff who didn't know her well would look at her, their eyes lingering with a new, speculative curiosity. The story was out. But it was not her story. It was a twisted, cruel fiction, and she quickly learned its authors. Marcus and Jessica, far from being in hiding or consumed by remorse, were celebrating. Elara's friend Sarah, her face tight with anger, reluctantly told her. They had been seen at a trendy, glass-walled lounge in Soho, a place for celebrities and influencers. Marcus, with his arm possessively around Jessica's waist, they were laughing, drinking, and telling anyone who would listen their meticulously crafted version of the events. They claimed Elara was unstable, hormonal, and had been cheating for months with a doctor at the hospital. They said Marcus, the long-suffering husband, had finally confronted her. She had flown into a rage, they claimed, and had accidentally fallen during her hysterical fit. They painted her as the villain, him as the victim, and Jessica as the noble woman who had finally saved him from a toxic marriage. The rumors, now given public validation, found Elara in the sterile safety of her room. A well-meaning nurse's aide mentioned it, thinking she was being helpful. "Some people are just cruel, honey. Jealousy is a terrible thing. Don't you listen to what they are saying." But the damage was done. The lie, so grotesque and unbelievable, cut deeper than the wood had. He was not just trying to destroy her body. He was trying to destroy her reputation, her truth, and her very identity. He was salting the earth of her entire life. The ultimate humiliation, however, was yet to come. It happened on a gray afternoon, 5 days after the assault. Elara had finally felt strong enough to be helped into a wheelchair, just for a change of scenery, just to feel human for a few minutes. She was parked near the main nurse's station, idly flipping through a magazine, her body aching, when the elevator doors chimed open. He walked out, Marcus. And beside him, clinging to his arm like a parasite, was Jessica. The entire floor, bustling with the activity of a shift change, seemed to fall silent. Every nurse, every doctor, every visitor, froze. Jessica was a vision of deliberate, weaponized provocation. She wore a skin-tight, blood-red dress that stood in stark, jarring contrast to the pale greens and blues of the hospital. Her makeup was perfect. Her hair was perfect. Her heels clicked aggressively on the polished linoleum, a sound like tapping hammers in the quiet hall. She wore a smile of pure, venomous triumph, her eyes scanning the floor until they landed on Elara. She saw her, and her smile widened. They did not slow down. They walked directly to the nurse's station, just feet from where Elara sat, paralyzed, her blood turning to ice. This was not real. This could not be happening. This was a nightmare. Jessica leaned her head on Marcus's shoulder, her voice pitched to carry, a sickeningly sweet, loud performance for the gallery of stunned medical staff. "Oh, baby, I am so glad you are finally free. All that dead weight is gone." She paused, then turned her head just enough to lock eyes with Elara. "Now you do not have to worry about the liar anymore. You have me. I will give you a real family." Marcus did nothing. He did not shush her. He did not look ashamed. He did not look conflicted. He looked at Elara, his wife, the mother of his child, sitting broken in a wheelchair, and his eyes were as cold and dead as they had been the night he attacked her. He was complicit. He was proud. It was too much. The pain in her shoulder, the fear for her baby, the rumors, it was all a dull ache compared to this. This was a public execution. Elara felt the weight of every stare, the burning pity from her friends, the quiet judgment from strangers. Her breath hitched. She could not breathe. She could not think. With her one good hand, her movements clumsy and desperate, she fumbled with the large wheels of her chair. She pushed herself backward, her fingers slipping, her body shaking violently. She turned the chair, a ragged, choking sound escaping her throat, and fled down the hall. She did not stop until she was back in the sanctuary of her room, the door locked behind her. She wheeled herself to the window and stared out at the gray New York skyline, her body shaking with a profound, silent agony. That night, long after the hospital had settled into its nocturnal rhythm, Elara sat in the darkness. The tears had dried, the shaking had stopped. There was only a vast, cold, echoing emptiness. She held her stomach, her hand a protective shield. She felt a new, unfamiliar sensation blooming in the void where her heart had been. It was not fear. It was not sadness. It was something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. The image of Jessica's triumphant smile, of Marcus's dead eyes, was burned into her memory. The pain, the humiliation, it all coalesced, crystallized, and cooled. It turned from fragile glass into something new, something diamond-hard. She bent her head, her lips close to her abdomen, and made a quiet, solemn vow. "I am so sorry," she whispered, her voice hoarse and changed. "I am so sorry you have to start your life like this. But I promise you something, little one. I promise you they will not win. I will not let them. I will never, ever let them hurt us again." As the last word of her vow settled in the cold, dark room, a quiet click came from the door. It opened, not with the hurried squeak of a nurse on rounds, but with a slow, heavy certainty. Elara's head snapped up, her body tensing, a fresh wave of adrenaline making her heart hammer against her broken ribs. She feared it was Marcus, returning to finish the job or to offer some new, grotesque apology. But it was not Marcus. 3 men filled the doorway, their shoulders so broad they seemed to block out all the light from the hallway. They did not look like they belonged in the pale green, sterile environment of a hospital. They looked like they belonged in boardrooms, on the covers of magazines, in places where decisions were made that shifted economies and altered skylines. The first to enter was Sebastian, the eldest. His suit was a flawless, custom-tailored dark gray, his silver-streaked hair impeccable. His face, which had graced the cover of Forbes 3 times, was a mask of cold, unreadable calm. But his eyes, the moment they landed on Elara, were like chips of frozen steel. He was the financier, the strategist, the one whose silence was more dangerous than any threat. Behind him came Julian, the real estate tycoon. He was the biggest of the 3, a man built with the same solid, imposing permanence as the skyscrapers he erected. His fists, large and scarred from a youth he had fought his way out of, were already clenched at his sides. His gaze swept the room, taking in the hospital bed, the IV pole, the sling supporting her arm, and his eyes, when they finally met hers, were soft with a pain that was instantly consumed by a dark, gathering storm. The last to enter was Adrian, the youngest, the tech genius. He was the fire to their ice and earth. He still wore the tuxedo from the gala in Austin, his bow tie undone, his hair disheveled. He saw her, and his mask did not just crack. It shattered. "Oh, Elara." The words were a choked, broken sound. He lunged forward, not with the arrogance of Marcus, but with a desperate, frantic energy, dropping to his knees beside her wheelchair. His hands, one of them wrapped in a blood-stained cocktail napkin, hovered over her, terrified to touch her, to cause her more pain. His eyes, bright and full of a terrible, hot fury, filled with tears. "Ellie, my God, what did he do to you?" Sebastian's voice cut through the room, sharp and low. "You should have called us, Elara." The moment he raised his voice. Months ago. It was not an accusation. It was a statement of profound, agonizing regret. A statement that they had, in their own powerful worlds, failed to protect her from this. Julian did not speak. He walked to the window, his back to the room, and stared out at the city he owned a significant piece of. Elara could see the reflection of his face in the dark glass, his jaw working, his teeth grinding. He was trying to contain a rage, so vast it threatened to break the very glass he was staring through. He quietly asked the question they all knew the answer to. Who did this? Seeing them, feeling the wave of absolute, unconditional protection rolling off them, the dam Elara had built inside herself, finally, completely, crumbled. The cold, hard anger she had been nursing dissolved, replaced by the crushing weight of her reality. She was safe. For the first time in what felt like years, she was completely, utterly safe, and that safety allowed her to finally feel the full, unadulterated scope of her pain. I did not know what to do. She wept, the sobs tearing from her, raw and ugly. I was so ashamed. Ashamed. Adrian's voice was a venomous hiss. He should be ashamed. He should be dead. Shh, Adrian. Let her talk. Sebastian pulled a chair to her side, his movements economical and precise. He sat, his posture rigid, and waited. And so she told them everything. It poured out of her, a torrent of confession that she had held back for so long. She told them how it started, not with a fist, but with a word. How Marcus had slowly, methodically, chipped away at her confidence. The jokes about her salary, how it was nurse's pay while he was a business owner, how he had convinced her to drain her savings, the money their mother had left her, to fund his dream, the auto shop. She told them how, once the money was his, the jokes had turned to criticism. Her clothes were frumpy. Her friends were boring. She was too tired all the time from her double shifts, the shifts she was still working to pay for their apartment and cover the shop's startup costs. She told them about Jessica. How she had appeared 6 months ago, first as a new client, then a business consultant. How Elara had voiced her suspicions, and how Marcus had turned it on her, calling her crazy, jealous, and paranoid. How he had gaslighted her so completely that she had begun to doubt her own instincts, her own reality. How he had started staying out all night, claiming he was working, and how she, desperate to believe him, had accepted his lies, had even apologized to him for doubting. And then she told them about the night. She recounted every word, every second. The smell of the alcohol, the deadness in his eyes, the accusation, the piece of wood, the unbearable, shattering pain as he swung, and her last conscious thought, to protect her baby. When she finished, the room was so quiet that the beep of the heart monitor sounded like a drum. Adrian was no longer crying. His face was pale, his eyes were burning with a terrifying, dry light. He stood up slowly. I am going to kill him, he stated it simply, as a fact. I do not care about the consequences. I am going to find him, and I am going to tear him apart with my bare hands. He started for the door. No. Julian's voice boomed. He had turned from the window. His face was a thundercloud. He put a massive hand on Adrian's chest, stopping him. You will not. Adrian struggled, his fury making him reckless. Get out of my way, Julian. He put his hands on her. He tried to kill her. And we will handle it. Julian's voice was like steel, but not like this, not with blind rage. We will not end up in a jail cell while he walks free. We will act with precision. We will act with a cold, calculated, and absolute finality. We will not just make him suffer. We will make him wish he had never been born. Sebastian nodded, his mind already 3 steps ahead. He pulled out his phone. He is right, Adrian. Passion is a weakness. We will use none of it. He began typing, his thumbs a blur. They have already built a narrative. The cheating wife. The hysterical fall. We need to dismantle it. We need irrefutable proof. We need to know everything. Jessica, the bar, the shop's finances, every dollar he ever took from her. We will bury them in the truth. He will lose everything, Julian stated, his voice flat. The shop, the apartment, his reputation, his freedom. He will lose more than that, Sebastian said without looking up from his phone. As if summoned by the sheer weight of their hatred, the door opened again. This time, it was not a quiet click, it was an arrogant shove. Marcus strode in, his face a mask of false confidence. And clinging to his arm, her smile, a painted sneer, was Jessica. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second when she saw the 3 men, her gaze lingering on their expensive suits and watches, but her arrogance quickly reasserted itself. She clearly mistook their controlled, tailored appearances for weakness. Marcus, however, was high on his own manufactured power. He completely misread the room. He saw the 3 men as an audience, an obstacle to be dismissed. Julian moved first. He did not rush. He simply took 1 step, his sheer size and the palpable aura of menace rolling off him, and physically blocked their path. "Get out." Marcus actually laughed. It was a high, thin, nervous sound. "Excuse me. I am here to see my wife." He spat the word. "You cannot tell me what to do. This is a hospital." "She is not your wife anymore," Adrian snarled, stepping up beside Julian. "She is our sister." Marcus' eyes darted between the three of them, a flicker of uncertainty finally entering his gaze. But Jessica, sensing her control slipping, dug her nails into his arm. "Do not let them intimidate you, baby. They cannot do anything." Bolstered by her stupidity, Marcus puffed out his chest. He sneered at Julian. "I am not afraid of you. You are just some empty suit." He then shoved past Julian, who let him go, his eyes turning to absolute ice. Marcus stalked to the foot of Elara's bed. He looked down at her, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated contempt. "So, this is your new plan. Calling your rich brothers to come and save you. You going to cry to them about how I abused you." He made air quotes, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Stop playing the victim, Elara. It is pathetic. Everyone knows the truth. Everyone knows what you are. A cheating, lying whore." Before Adrian could launch himself across the bed, Marcus reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a folded document. "But it does not matter. I am done. I am done with you. I am done with this whole charade." He threw the papers onto Elara's legs. They landed on her blanketed stomach like a venomous snake. "Divorce papers." Elara stared at the document, her heart pounding a sick, slow rhythm. "You should read them," Marcus continued, his smile widening, enjoying his moment. "But I will give you the highlights. You get nothing, not a single cent. The auto shop is in my name. The apartment lease is in my name. You think that money your mommy left you matters. It is gone. I invested it. It is mine." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, though it was loud enough for everyone to hear. "And the best part, I am fighting for full custody." Elara's head snapped up. "What?" "The baby," he said, nodding. "Or, whatever it is, I am filing for custody. And given your instability, your infidelity, your assault on me." He gestured to a tiny scratch on his cheek she had never even seen. "No court in the world will give it to you. I will take that bastard child just to watch you suffer. You will never, ever see him." The room temperature dropped 20 degrees. Elara could not breathe. This was a new, unimagined level of cruelty. He would steal her child, her baby, the only thing she had left. She began to tremble, a violent, full-body tremor. Adrian finally snapped. He lunged, a wordless roar ripping from his throat, but Sebastian was faster. He caught his younger brother in a grip of iron, holding him back. "Not here, Adrian. Not yet." Marcus flinched back, startled by the violence, but mistook Sebastian's restraint for weakness. He laughed, adjusting his jacket. "That is what I thought." He looked back at Elara. "Sign the papers, Elara. It is the only way you will get rid of me. And do not even think about fighting me on this. You have nothing. You are nothing." He turned, grabbing Jessica's hand. "Let's go, baby. I am bored." As he reached the door, Julian, who had not moved, who had watched the entire exchange with a terrifying, profound stillness, finally spoke. His voice was not loud. It was a low, dangerous whisper that cut through the air and stopped Marcus dead in his tracks. "You just made the single biggest mistake of your life." Marcus turned, a witty retort on his lips, but he saw Julian's eyes. And for the first time, he saw not an empty suit, but an executioner. The color drained from his face. Jessica had to physically pull him out of the room. The door clicked shut, leaving the four of them in the ringing silence. The divorce papers sat on Elara's bed, a declaration of a war that Marcus had just guaranteed he could never, ever win. The silence that followed their exit was heavy and absolute, broken only by the rhythmic beep of Elara's heart monitor. The divorce papers lay on her blanket, a white flag of surrender Marcus had demanded. Elara's body was shaking, a violent, bone-deep tremor she couldn't control. The threat to her child had bypassed all her physical injuries and struck at her very soul. He said he'd take my baby." Her voice was a disbelieving whisper, her good hand splayed protectively over her stomach. "Sebastian, can he do that? Can he just take him?" Sebastian, the strategist, was the first to move. He stepped forward and picked up the folded documents, his expression one of pure, clinical disgust. He unfolded them, his eyes, trained to consume and analyze terabytes of financial data, scanned the pages in seconds. "No," he said, his voice a cold, hard reassurance. "This is an amateurish, emotionally driven threat. It's full of procedural errors. It's designed to do one thing: terrorize you." The man is an idiot. He refolded the papers with chilling precision. "But he is a dangerous idiot. He has declared war, Elara. We will oblige him." Adrian, however, was not listening. He was pacing the small room like a caged tiger, his fists clenching and unclenching. "Idiot. Yes, a dead idiot. I don't care what you say, Julian. I am going to end him. He threatened her child. He threatened our family. This isn't business. This is blood. You will do nothing." Julian's voice was a low growl. He was still standing by the window, a dark silhouette against the gray city. "You will do nothing that puts you in a cage and makes him a victim. He wants you to react. He wants you to be the hothead. We will not give him the satisfaction. We will be cold. We will be methodical. We will dismantle his entire life, brick by brick, until he is left with nothing but the dust of the lies he's built." He turned, his eyes finding Elara's. "He will never get within 100 yards of you or this child again. I swear that on our mother's grave." The oath hung in the air, an unbreakable, ironclad promise. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit, sticky-floored office in the back of her failing bar, Jessica was pouring Marcus 2 fingers of cheap whiskey. He was vibrating with a mixture of adrenaline and a new, creeping fear. "You should have seen them, Jess. The big one, he looked at me like I was nothing. Like I was an insect." 1. Jessica slammed the bottle down, her eyes glinting with greedy, low cunning. "So they have money. Who cares? They're just empty suits, like you said. But you were clumsy, Marcus. A divorce, custody, do you know what that means?" He looked at her, confused. "It means discovery. It means lawyers. It means those empty suits get to send their accountants to crawl through our books. My books." She gestured around the bar. "Do you want them to see the money you've been funneling from the shop? The money you took from her?" Panic flashed in Marcus's eyes. "No, I didn't think." "That's the problem. You don't think." Jessica grabbed his face, her long nails digging into his cheeks. "You use a hammer when you need a scalpel. We don't fight her. We trick her. That woman is a soft-hearted, sentimental idiot. She's a nurse. Her entire personality is about fixing broken things. And right now, she's pregnant, she's broken, and she's terrified." A slow, ugly smile spread across her face. "You are going to go back there. And you are going to cry. You're going to tell her I'm the villain. I'm a crazy, manipulative bitch who poisoned your mind. You tell her you were drunk, you were lost, you were terrified of being a father. You tell her you see it all clearly now. You tell her you want your family back." Marcus stared at her. "After what I did, after what we just did. She'll never believe me. Her brothers will kill me." "She will believe you," Jessica hissed, shaking him. "Because she wants to believe you. She's desperate. She doesn't want to be a single mother. She doesn't want this war. She wants the fantasy. She wants the picket fence. You are the father of her child. You just have to sell it, beg her. We get her to sign everything over willingly, and her brothers can't do a damn thing." The next day, Elara was propped up on her pillows, nursing a cup of lukewarm tea, when a nurse hesitantly announced a visitor. "He says his name is Marcus. He has flowers. He seems very upset." Adrian shot to his feet. "Tell him I'm coming down to throw him through the lobby window." "Wait." Sebastian put a hand up, his mind working. "Is the recording device we installed last night active?" Julian, who had placed the tiny, high-fidelity microphone under Elara's bed tray, nodded once. "Good." Sebastian looked at Elara. "This is your call. We can have him arrested for trespassing, but if he is here to incriminate himself, it could be useful." Elara's heart was a confused, frightened bird in her chest. A part of her wanted him gone, wanted him vaporized. But another, more toxic, familiar part, the part that had loved him, the part that was now tethered to him forever by the child she carried, whispered, "What if? Let him in." Her voice was barely audible. "I want to hear it." Marcus entered, and the transformation was staggering. He was not the arrogant, contemptuous monster from the day before. He was a broken man, his clothes were rumpled, his eyes were red and swollen, and he held a bouquet of cheap, cellophane-wrapped carnations. He stopped just inside the door, his gaze fixed on Elara, and his face crumpled. He fell to his knees, dropping the flowers, and broke into a racking, theatrical sob. Elara. Oh God, Elara, what have I done? He crawled forward, stopping just short of her bed, well within range of Julian's towering presence. I wasn't me. I haven't been me for months. It was her. It was Jessica. He looked up, his face a mask of remorse, tears streaming down his cheeks. She poisoned me. She told me you were cheating. She told me the baby wasn't mine. She fed me so much poison. I believed her. I was so stressed about the shop. I was drinking. I was a fool. He choked on another sob. When I came here yesterday, and I saw your brothers, and I said those things, it was like waking up. I realized I've thrown away my life. My family, you, our child. Elara stared, her mind reeling. She felt nothing, just a cold, vast emptiness. But beneath that emptiness, a tiny, sick flicker of something else. It was not love. It was not forgiveness. It was hope. A desperate, pathetic, and toxic hope. The hope for a simple life. The hope that this was all one terrible, fixable mistake. The hope that her child could still have a father. The part of her that was conditioned to forgive, to heal, to make peace, was stirring, and she hated herself for it. Get out. Adrian's voice was a low growl. He had taken a step forward. Wait. Elara's voice was small, but it stopped Adrian in his tracks. He looked at her, his face a mask of pure disbelief. Adrian, wait, please. She looked at Marcus. What? What do you want? Marcus saw the opening, the tiny crack in her resolve, and he seized it. A chance. Just one chance. To prove it to you. To prove I'll do anything. I love you, Elara. I have never stopped. Please. He scrambled to his feet, left the flowers on the floor, and backed out of the room. Please. Just think about it. The door closed, leaving a stunned, heavy silence. Adrian finally exploded. What the hell was that, Elara? You cannot be considering this. It's an act. A pathetic, obvious act. I know. She whispered, tears of self-loathing welling in her eyes. I know. I think I know. But, I need to think. She hated her weakness. She hated that the fantasy of a normal family for her baby still had such a powerful, sickening pull. Sebastian watched her, his expression unreadable. He will be back, he said, as a statement of fact. And next time, he will bring a new weapon. He was right. Marcus returned the following day. This time, no flowers, no tears. He looked serious, somber, and remorseful. The three brothers were there, standing like granite sentinels around her bed. Marcus did not look at them. He looked only at Elara. I know you don't believe my words. I don't blame you. So I'm here to show you with actions. He took a deep, shaky breath. I fired Jessica. I told her if she ever comes near me or my family again, I'll call the police. I've ended it. For good. And I talked to my lawyer. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick, legal-sized envelope. Not the one from before. This one was new, crisp. He said the divorce papers were a mistake. He said they were too aggressive, that I was acting out of pain. He suggested, if we were really going to try, we should sign reconciliation papers. He placed the envelope gently on her bedside table. He called it a postnup, to protect you, Elara, to show that the shop, the assets, they're ours. To show we're starting over. A new beginning. He looked at her, his eyes pleading. Please, Elara. Read it. Sign it. Let's end this nightmare. Let's do this for us. For our baby. Elara stared at the envelope. Her heart was tearing in two. The idea of reconciliation, however false, however impossible, was a siren song. One path was war, a life of fighting, a child caught between a monster and a broken mother. The other path. What if? What if it was peace? What if the man she married was still in there, buried deep? Even a 1% chance. Wasn't it worth it for her child? Just then, A sharp knock came at the door. Dr. Chen, her OB-GYN, and Dr. Albright, the orthopedic surgeon, entered, their faces professional. "Miss Elara, we're glad we caught you. We have the final surgical plan for your clavicle. It's a bit complex due to the fragmentation, and we need to discuss the recovery protocol and the anesthesia's effect, however minimal, on the pregnancy." Dr. Albright looked at the three brothers. "Actually, could we speak with you three in the hallway? As her primary support system, we need you to understand the post-operative care she will need. It will be extensive. It will only take a few minutes." Sebastian hesitated. His eyes darted to Marcus, then to the envelope, then to Elara. He did not want to leave, but this was about her health. "We will be right outside the door." Julian stepped toward Marcus, his sheer size eclipsing the man. He leaned in and whispered, his voice a low vibration of pure menace. "If you breathe on her, if you look at her wrong, if that envelope so much as twitches, I will break both your arms." Slowly, the three brothers filed out, following the doctors. The door clicked shut, the sound like a gavel. Elara was alone, with him. The tension was so thick she could barely breathe. Marcus smiled, a small, sad, reassuring smile. He nudged the envelope on the tray, sliding it onto her lap. "Please, Elara, let's just end this. Let's be a family. Before they come back, let this be our decision." She looked at the envelope. Her hands were trembling. This was it. The choice. She slowly, with her one good hand, fumbled with the clasp and opened it. She pulled out the sheaf of papers. It was dense. Pages and pages of dark, unreadable text. Whereas, the party of the first part, in perpetuity, hereinafter referred to as, it was a wall of legal jargon she couldn't possibly understand. But she saw the words reconciliation and shared assets and marital home scattered throughout the first page. See, Marcus's voice was a soft, encouraging coo. "It's just stuff. To make it official, to put everything right again. Here." He pulled a pen from his pocket and held it out to her. She took it. Her fingers were numb. Her heart was pounding so loudly it drowned out the entire hospital. "I just want the pain to stop. I just want a normal life for my baby." She told herself it was just paper. She told herself she could fix this. She clicked the pen. She took a deep, shuddering breath. She lowered the tip to the final page, to the long, empty line above her typed name. The ink hovered, millimeters from the paper, a single, black point of no return. The door burst open. It did not just open, it flew off its hinges, slamming into the wall with a sound like a gunshot. "Elara, put the pen down." Julian's voice was not a voice. It was a roar, a command that seemed to shake the very foundations of the hospital. Elara screamed, a short, terrified sound, her hand jerking, leaving a sharp, black streak of ink across the signature line. Marcus leaped back, his remorseful mask vanishing, replaced by a flash of pure, terrified, animal guilt. Sebastian strode into the room, his face a mask of white-hot, apocalyptic rage. Dr. Chen was behind him, her hand over her mouth. "We were just discussing we turned around and he's a very good actor, doctor." Sebastian snarled, his eyes fixed on Marcus. He snatched the papers from Elara's lap. His eyes scanned the text, his legal and financial training, allowing him to see in seconds what she never could. He read. He stopped. His blood, his very soul, seemed to run cold. He looked up, his face pale, his eyes black holes of disbelief. "You reptilian bastard." Adrian, seeing his brother's face, pushed past him. "What is it? Seb, what is it?" Sebastian's hand was shaking, not with fear. With a fury so profound, so deep, it was almost silent. He held up the paper, his finger jabbing at a small, dense, unassuming paragraph buried on page 7. "This isn't a reconciliation paper, Elara." His voice was heartbreakingly gentle as he looked at her, his expression shattering her. Then his gaze snapped to Marcus, and it was lethal. "It's a trap." "What?" Elara's voice was a dead whisper. "This clause." Sebastian's voice was shaking. Section 7b. In recognition of the prenatal stress and acknowledged paternal uncertainty, it's legal garbage, but it's here. To the undersigned, Elara Hayes, does hereby permanently and irrevocably surrender and terminate all parental rights, and grants full, sole, and unchallengeable physical and legal custody of the child, known and unknown, to the party of the first part, Marcus Hayes, upon the moment of birth. Elara's world tilted, the sound in the room fading to a high-pitched whine. No, no. There's more. Sebastian's voice was dead. This second clause. Section 8A. Involuntary forfeiture of all assets, personal and shared, liquid and property, including all past, present, and future inheritances, as recompense for emotional distress and marital infidelity. You're not just giving him the baby, Elara. His voice broke, just for a second. You're agreeing to give him everything you have and will ever have, and you're signing a legal confession that you're an unfaithful, unfit mother to do it. The high-pitched whine in Elara's ears drowned out all other sound. The room seemed to tilt, the fluorescent lights blurring into bright, meaningless streaks. The pen, forgotten, clattered from her numb fingers, rolling across the plastic bed tray and onto the floor. It was a small, insignificant sound, but to Elara, it was an explosion. It was the sound of her last, pathetic, stupid hope dying. She stared at the ink streak on the signature line, a sharp, black gash. The mark she had almost made on her own life, and on the life of her unborn child. The word Sebastian had read echoed in the ringing silence of her mind. Permanently and irrevocably surrender and terminate all parental rights. Full, sole, and unchallengeable custody. Voluntary forfeiture of all assets, personal and shared. A legal confession that you are an unfaithful, unfit mother. He hadn't just hit her. He hadn't just betrayed her. He had meticulously, psychopathically, plotted her erasure. He had looked at her, at the woman who had funded his life, at the mother of his child, and seen nothing but a bank account to be drained and an obstacle to be discarded. The flowers, the tears, the remorse, it was all a performance, a rehearsal. He had practiced his grief to trick her into handing him her son. This realization, this absolute, devastating, final betrayal, acted like a chemical agent. The sick, violent trembling that had racked her body for days did not just lessen. It stopped. The nausea that had lived in her stomach since the assault vanished, replaced by a profound, arctic cold. The hot, self-loathing tears on her cheeks felt like they were freezing. The weakness, the doubt, the desperate, pathetic hope for reconciliation, it was all burned away, cauterized by a rage so pure and so cold it was almost serene. It was a terrible, clarifying, and beautiful calm. Marcus, trapped between the door and Julian's towering form, was stammering, his face a grotesque mask of guilt. It's not. I can explain. The lawyer, he said it was standard. He said, Jessica made me. Adrian, vibrating with a rage that was the opposite of Elara's hot, chaotic, and volcanic, finally moved. You. He took a step, his hands clawed, his intention nothing less than murder. Stop. The word was not hers. It was low, flat, and dead. It came from her throat, but it felt like it belonged to someone else. It froze everyone. It froze Adrian mid-lunge. It froze Julian, who had been about to grab Marcus. It froze Sebastian, who was still holding the lethal document. Slowly, painfully, Elara used her one good arm to grip the bed rail, pulling herself into a straighter, more rigid sitting position. Her eyes, which had been wide with shock and blurred with tears, were now dry. They were terrifyingly clear. She lifted her head and looked directly at Marcus. Her gaze was not emotional. It was not angry. It was not sad. It was the gaze of a scientist looking at a specimen, a void of all feeling. And in that void, Marcus saw his own destruction. He flinched, a small, animal sound of fear escaping him. You didn't just try to break my bones. Her voice was as cold and steady as her eyes. You didn't just try to steal my money. You tried to steal my son. Marcus began to blubber, a pathetic, wet sound. Elara, no, please, baby, I love you. It was Jessica, she's a monster. She forced me. She threatened me. Get out. It was not a yell, it was a command, backed by a finality that was absolute. What? Elara, please, just listen to me. Julian, finally understanding the shift, stepped forward. He did not grab Marcus by the collar. He simply put one enormous hand on the man's chest. She told you to get out. You can't, she's my wife. She is nothing to you, Julian said, his voice a low rumble. He shoved Marcus backward, out of the room, into the hallway, sending him stumbling into a linen cart. You will be hearing from our legal team. Sebastian's voice, pure ice, cut through the air from behind him. If you or that woman come within 500 feet of this hospital, you will be arrested for harassment and trespassing. If you try to contact my sister in any way, I will personally, and legally, ruin you in ways you cannot even begin to conceptualize." Julian closed the door, shutting out the sound of Marcus's fading, panicked protests. The three brothers, their own fury a palpable thing in the small room, turned back to Elara. She was not crying. She was looking at the blank, beige wall, her face a mask of stone. "Elara." Adrian started, his voice pained, seeing her emptiness. "Ellie, we're so sorry. We should have known. We left you alone." She turned her head. The victim was gone. The nurse was gone. The wife was gone. Something new and terrible and strong was looking out of her eyes. "I want to fight," she said. Her voice was clear. "No more hiding, no more waiting, no more hoping. I want to destroy them." She looked at her brothers, one by one, her gaze locking with theirs, pulling them into her new, cold resolve. "I want to take back every single cent he stole from me. And then I want to take everything he has. I want his business shattered. I want her bar in ashes. I want him in jail. I want her ruined. I want them to pay. For everything." A slow smile, the first in days, spread across Sebastian's face. It was not a kind smile. "Good," he said, his voice full of relief and pride. "That's the sister we know. That's the woman who funded his entire life. It's time she collected." The hospital room, a place of sickness and vulnerability, instantly transformed. It became a war room. Sebastian, the general, sat down and opened his sleek, dark laptop. "Then the war begins now." He looked at Elara. "They have a narrative. The cheating, unstable wife. It's weak, but it's all they have. We will counter it, not with noise, but with an ironclad foundation of truth." He pulled a thin, black file from his briefcase. "I took the liberty of having your medical team pull this together last night. I was going to wait, but now," he slid the file onto her lap. "This is your shield, and your sword." Elara opened it. She had expected to feel sick. She felt nothing but cold validation. It was all there. The 911 call transcript from her neighbor, Mr. Henderson, his voice booming with Hess hitting her. He's going to kill her. There were the hospital admission reports. And then, there were the photographs. High resolution, brutally clinical, time-stamped photos of her injuries. Her face, swollen, and mapped with a dark purple and yellow of a deep bruise. The X-rays of her clavicle, the bones snapped, the fragmentation clear. The dark, ugly contusions on her ribs. She did not flinch. She traced the bruise on her photo with her good finger. "Good," she said. "I want them published." Julian, who had been watching her with a sort of awestruck pride, pulled out his phone. "Sebastian is right. We control the story." He dialed a number from memory. "Get me Sarah Jensen at the Times." The journalist. "No, I do not care that she's on assignment. Tell her Julian Hayes is calling, and it's a personal matter of extreme, time-sensitive injustice. Tell her I have an exclusive that will break the internet." He looked at Elara. "We leak the story, but we do it right. The story of a pregnant, dedicated New York nurse, brutally assaulted by her husband. We frame it with a 911 call, the medical reports, and his subsequent fraud. We make you the face of survival, not victimhood." At the same time, Sebastian was on his own phone, his voice low and lethal. "Get me the Kroll agency. I want the A-team. I want full-spectrum surveillance and deep-dive forensic accounting on two individuals, Marcus Hayes and Jessica Albright. I want every dollar he ever made, every dollar she ever spent. I want to know where they get their coffee. I want to know about the $100,000 Elara Hayes transferred to him 2 years ago for his shop. I want a clear, undeniable trail of financial malfeasance. I want it yesterday." The PI team struck gold. It did not take days. It took 36 hours. Sebastian received the encrypted report, and a thin, cold, terrifying smile touched his lips. "We have them." He turned the laptop to Elara. "The auto shop, the one you funded, it's been operating at a net loss for over 6 months. But Marcus has been writing large, bi-weekly checks for consulting services to a shell corporation, an LLC registered in Delaware." He clicked a key. "That corporation's sole owner. Jessica." Elara said. It was not a question. "Jessica." Sebastian confirmed. He's been systematically siphoning your investment, your mother's inheritance, and funneling it directly into her failing bar to keep it afloat. It's not just immoral, Elara. It's wire fraud. It's embezzlement. It's a federal crime. This was the ace. This was the weapon that would end it all. Julian's timepiece was running, causing a stir in financial and real estate circles, but it was just text. It was time for the final, public execution. The media is interested, Julian said. A major network news magazine wants an exclusive interview. They want to talk to you. Here, in this room. Elara's first instinct was to hide, to protect her privacy. But she looked at the custody document, still sitting on the bed tray. She thought of Marcus' crocodile tears. She thought of her son. Yes, her voice was clear. Set it up. If they want the truth, I will give it to them. I'll give them all of it. The interview was 3 days later. Elara sat propped up in her bed. Her arm was in the sling. She had refused all offers of makeup to cover the fading, sickly yellow bruise on her cheek and jaw. She wanted them to see. The interviewer was a famous, compassionate woman, known for giving survivors a voice. Elara, she asked, her voice gentle, why are you doing this? Why speak out? Elara looked directly into the camera, her gaze so steady and unbroken it felt like she was looking into every living room in America. Because I was silent for too long, she told her story. She did not cry. She was measured, factual, and strong. She recounted the years of financial sacrifice. She recounted the attack, her voice never wavering. And then, she delivered the killing blow. He tried to tell the police and our friends that I had fallen. He is still telling that lie, but the truth is, this was never about an argument. It was about greed. She laid out, simply, how he had been stealing her money to give to his mistress. And she saved the worst for last. Her hand went to her stomach. But the reason I am speaking, the only reason, is this. She held up the redacted, fraudulent document. He did this to me while I was pregnant. And then, just 2 days ago, he came into this hospital room, crying, begging for forgiveness, and tried to trick me into signing this. The journalist leaned in, her eyes wide. What is that document, Elara? It's a piece of paper, Elara said, her voice finally cracking, not with sadness, but with a cold, clear rage, that grants him full and permanent custody of my unborn child, and includes my legal confession that I am an unfaithful, unfit mother. The interview did not just go viral. It was a cultural explosion. It was a tsunami of public support for Elara and a tidal wave of fury directed at Marcus and Jessica. Women's shelters across the country reported a massive spike in donations, all made in Elara's name. The hospital lobby was so buried in flowers and gifts for her that they had to redirect them to the pediatric wing. The public fallout for Marcus and Jessica was immediate and catastrophic. Marcus' auto shop was deserted. The review pages on Google and Yelp were a firestorm of 1-star ratings, screenshots of the interview, and accusations. Wife beater and thief were spray-painted in giant red letters across the garage bay doors. The landlord, under pressure from Julian, served him an eviction notice for moral turpitude and financial irregularities. Jessica's bar, already on life support, was crippled. Protesters stood outside, holding signs with Elara's bruised face. The bar was boycotted into oblivion. Her liquor license was summarily suspended by the state authority, citing an anonymous but highly detailed tip about financial fraud, a quiet call from Sebastian. Within a week, the doors were chained shut by the city marshal. They were cornered, humiliated, and now, broke. Holed up in Jessica's apartment, the curtains drawn against the world, they descended into their own private hell. She's lying. Jessica screamed, throwing a whiskey glass at the wall, her glamorous facade cracking to reveal the desperate, greedy creature beneath. She's making it all up. That bitch. We have to fight back. They launched their final, desperate, stupid plan, slander. They went to a bottom-feeder tabloid, the kind that paid for stories. They released their evidence. It was a pathetic, amateurish collection of badly doctored photos of Elara drinking at a party, her face clearly photoshopped onto someone else's body. It was a series of fake, salacious text messages, created on a simple app, proving her affair with a Dr. Williams. The tabloid ran the story, its cover a grotesque collage of the fake photos. Pregnant nurse's secret liaison. Did husband snap over torrid affair? Adrian brought the magazine into Elara's room, his face purple with rage. This is libel. It's insane. It's pathetic. I'm going to sue them into dust. Elara looked at the headline. She looked at the blurry, ridiculous photos. She was not angry. She was not sad. She almost pitied them. They're stupid. She said calmly, turning her gaze back to the window. And they're desperate. They're just proving our point. She looked at her brothers, her resolve absolute, her calm unshakable. Let them scream. This is their death rattle. Now, let's finish them. The desperate, badly made tabloid story was a final, sputtering act of self-destruction. The public, now wholly on Elara's side, saw the fake photos and laughably written text messages not as evidence, but as a confirmation of Marcus and Jessica's grotesque character. The slander backfired, painting them as not only cruel, but stupid. The flimsy accusations were instantly torn apart by online sleuths, and the tabloid that had run the story found itself the target of a multi-million-dollar libel suit from Julian's legal team, which was more than happy to make an example of them. But the story had one, final, unintended consequence. 2 days after it hit the newsstands, a woman appeared in the lobby of Elara's hospital. She was not a journalist or a supporter. She was terrified. She was pale, trembling, and refused to give her name to anyone but Elara Hayes. Adrian, who was on his way out, saw the commotion and the woman's genuine, bone-deep fear. He escorted her up to Elara's room, which was now less a place of healing and more a strategic command center. The woman stood twisting her hands in the doorway, her eyes wide as she took in the scene. Elara, no longer in a hospital gown, but in her own clothes, her arm in a sleek black sling, sat in a chair by the window, flanked by Sebastian and his laptop. The woman looked like she was about to bolt. It's okay. Elara's voice was calm, the voice she used with frightened patience. You're safe here. My brothers won't let anything happen to you. What's your name? My name is Maria. The woman's voice was a whisper. I know who you are. I saw your interview. I worked for Jessica Albright. At the bar. Sebastian looked up from his computer, his fingers freezing on the keys. I'm a graphic designer. Maria continued, the words tumbling out in a panicked rush. I just did her menus, her event posters. But the bar was failing. She was so far in debt. And then Marcus, he started giving her money. Lots of it. And she had me create fake invoices. Consulting services, supply fees. She had me backdate them. To justify the money he was taking from his shop, to hide it. Elara felt the cold, clear focus sharpen. This was it. Why are you telling me this now, Maria? Sebastian's voice was not unkind, but it was direct, devoid of emotion. Maria flinched. Those pictures. The ones in the newspaper. The ones of her, drinking, with that man. I made them. Jessica forced me to. She stood over my shoulder, telling me to make her look dirtier. She laughed the whole time. Tears began to stream down Maria's face. I saw your interview. I have a daughter. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't live with myself. I quit. And when I did, she threatened me. She said she knew where my daughter went to school. She said if I ever talked, I'd end up just like you. Broken, in a hospital. Elara's blood ran cold. This was not just greed. It was a pattern. It was predatory. But she's stupid, Maria said, a flash of anger cutting through her fear. She's arrogant. She kept everything. She loved to brag. She even recorded Marcus one night, when he was drunk, talking about how he was going to empty your accounts and dump you. She thought it was insurance against him. Maria reached into her bag and pulled out a small, black USB drive. She held it out with a shaking hand. It's all here, the original, undoctored photos. The real invoices, and the fake ones I made to match. The audio files, everything, please. Just take it. Put her away. Please don't let her hurt anyone else. Sebastian took the drive as if it were a holy relic. He plugged it into his laptop. For a full minute, the only sound was the quiet click of his trackpad. He put on a pair of headphones, listened, and his face, which had been a mask of cold calculation, went pale with a murderous rage he rarely let show. He finally looked up at Elara, his eyes black. We have them. His voice was a bare whisper. It's all here, the financial fraud, the conspiracy, the slander, and the intent. It is a complete, prosecutable, federal case. They are done. Julian, who had been watching from the corner, finally smiled. It was a terrifying sight. Good. The legal case is Sebastian's. But the execution, that's mine. He pulled out his phone and looked at his calendar. The Metropolitan Charity Ball is in 3 days. It is the single largest, most prestigious social event of the year in New York. Every major journalist, every banker, every philanthropist, and every old money family on the East Coast will be in one room. He looked at Elara, his eyes gleaming. And this year, by sheer, beautiful coincidence, I am the primary sponsor and the keynote speaker. The night of the gala, Elara stood in the penthouse apartment Sebastian had secured for her, a fortress of glass and steel overlooking Central Park. She had been discharged from the hospital that morning, her arm still in the sling, but her body thrumming with a new, cold energy. She looked at her reflection. She wore a simple, elegant, midnight blue velvet gown. It was modest, but its color made her skin look pale, and it did not, by design, hide the sling. "Are you sure you don't want me to have my personal stylist come up?" Adrian asked, his voice gentle. "She could. Cover the bruises. The ones on your face. They're almost gone, but..." Elara touched the faint, yellowish-purple shadow that remained on her jawline, a reminder, a brand. "No," her voice was firm. "I want them to see. I want every person in that room to see exactly what he did. I am done hiding." The grand ballroom of the Metropolitan Museum of Art was a sea of black ties, diamonds, and old money power. Orchestral music drifted from the rafters. Champagne flowed. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and the quiet murmur of the city's elite. And then, the murmuring stopped. The main doors opened, and Elara entered. She was flanked by her 3 brothers, a phalanx of tailored, bespoke power. Julian, the imposing real estate king. Sebastian, the cold, lethal financier. Adrian, the fiery, brilliant tech CEO. They did not walk, they advanced. And in their center was Elara, her head held high, her gaze fixed, the sling and the shadow on her jaw a stark, shocking testament in the glittering room. The whispers were not whispers. They were a collective, audible gasp. Everyone there had seen the interview, everyone had read the stories. And now, the victim, the survivor, was here, in the flesh. Across the room, near the main bar, Jessica was holding a glass of champagne, her laugh high and brittle. She was wearing a dress of blinding, garish red sequins, a desperate plea for attention. Marcus stood beside her, his suit ill-fitting, his face puffy, his eyes darting around the room, paranoid. They had, in a final act of deluded arrogance, called in every favor they had to get tickets, believing this was their one chance to be seen, to network, to prove to the world that Elara's lies had not affected them. Then Jessica saw her, her hand, lifting the champagne flute, froze. The smile did not fade, it shattered, leaving a mask of pure, unadulterated panic. She grabbed Marcus's arm, her red nails digging into his sleeve. He turned. His face went the color of ash. He stumbled, spilling champagne down the front of his jacket. They were trapped. 10 minutes later, the lights dimmed. Julian, as the night's host, walked onto the main stage. The polite applause was thunderous. He stood at the podium, his presence commanding the vast, echoing space. "Good evening." His voice boomed, warm and charismatic. "Thank you all for being here. Tonight, we are here to raise money for the children's wing of New York General, a cause very close to my family's heart." He paused, his smile fading slightly. "Tonight is about charity. It is about compassion. But it is also about truth." A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was not the standard speech. "As many of you know, my family has recently been through a great trial. And my sister, Elara Hayes, has shown a strength I could not have imagined." He looked to the side of the stage. "I would like to change the program for a moment, and invite her up to say a few words. Elara." The room was utterly silent as Elara, her steps measured and strong, walked across the stage and took the microphone from her brother. She looked out at the sea of 1,000 faces, the wealthiest and most powerful people in the country. Her heart was pounding, but her hand was steady. "For months, I lived in silence." Her voice, amplified, was clear and cold. "I was told I was weak. I was told I was paranoid. I was told I was crazy. And then, I was beaten, in my own home, by my husband. While I was pregnant with his child." The gasp from the crowd was sharp. Across the room, Marcus was visibly shaking, trying to pull Jessica toward a side exit, but the crowd had hemmed them in. "When I finally spoke out," Elara continued, her voice gaining strength. They tried to silence me again. They slandered me. They called me a liar. They tried to tell the world I was the villain. They released doctored, fake photographs of me to try and destroy my reputation. Lies. The shriek was animalistic. It came from the back of the room. Jessica. Her face was a twisted mask of rage. She's a liar. She's a cheating whore. She cheated on him. The room erupted. People turned, shouting at Jessica to be silent. The entire event was descending into chaos. Julian held up a hand. Elara did not flinch. She's right. Elara's voice cut through the noise, silencing the room once more. She's right that I did not tell the whole truth. The truth is, my husband, Marcus Hayes, and his mistress, Jessica Albright. Elara pointed a single, steady finger directly at her. Have been systematically embezzling money from me for over a year. That is slander. Jessica screamed, clawing at Marcus. You have no proof. I do. Elara said calmly. I was told I was alone. I was told no one would believe me. But they underestimated the courage of good people. I would like to introduce you to a woman named Maria. As if on cue, Sebastian, who had been waiting in the wings, escorted the terrified but resolute Maria onto the stage. My name is Maria. She whispered into the microphone, her voice shaking. I was a designer for Jessica Albright. She forced me to create those fake photos. She forced me to forge the business documents. To hide the money they were stealing. She threatened my daughter. This is insane. Marcus was now yelling, his voice cracking with panic. They're in on it together. Jessica was so arrogant. Elara's voice was like ice. She even recorded her partner in crime, bragging about the plan. Sebastian. Sebastian nodded to a tech booth in the back. A single audio file was cued, and from the $1 million orchestral speakers, Jessica's voice, hard, cold, and unmistakable, filled the ballroom. God, he's such an idiot. He'll hit her, she'll finally leave, and we'll have all the money. Just make the invoice look real. She's a stupid, sentimental nurse. She'll never even know what hit her. The audio file ended. The silence that followed was heavier, more profound, than any that had come before. Jessica stood, frozen, her mouth open, her face a mask of pure, reptilian hatred. Then the room exploded. It was not just shouting. It was a roar of disgust. Monster. Thief. Get them out. Marcus and Jessica turned and made a final, desperate dash for the main doors. But as they reached them, the doors swung open. It was not a way out. It was two NYPD detectives, in formal suits, flanked by 4 uniformed officers. Sebastian, a man who left nothing to chance, had arranged for them to be waiting, the warrant signed and ready, contingent on the public confession. Marcus Hayes, Jessica Albright. The detective's voice was loud and official. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, embezzlement, wire fraud, and witness intimidation. The officers moved in, pulling their hands behind their backs. The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound Elara had ever heard. No, Marcus, finally, completely, broke. He collapsed, sobbing, as they pulled him to his feet. You can't do this to me. I'll sue you all. Elara, please. Tell them it's a mistake. I love you, please. Elara stood on the stage and watched. She watched them cuff Jessica, who was silent, her eyes burning with a hatred so pure it was almost impressive. She watched them drag Marcus, who was a blubbering, pathetic child, out of the ballroom and into the flashing blue lights of the police cars waiting outside. And as they disappeared from view, the tears she had refused to shed finally came. They were not tears of pain. They were not tears of fear. They were tears of profound, cleansing, absolute liberation. The weight of her past, the shame, the fear, the marriage, it was all gone. She was free. She turned back to the microphone, her face wet, but her voice stronger than it had ever been. The entire room, 1,000 of the most powerful people in the world, was silent, watching her. Please. Her voice was clear and steady. Never be silent. Never let anyone, your partner, your boss, your family, tell you that you are weak, or that you are alone. Your voice is your power. Speaking out is the only way to protect yourself, and to protect what you love. Your voice matters. You are not alone. The room was silent for one beat, and then, the applause began. It was not polite. It was a thunderous, rolling, standing ovation that shook the very foundation of the museum. 6 months later, Elara stood in a bright, sun-drenched corner office. It was not a hospital room. It was the brand-new, downtown headquarters of the Elara Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to providing legal and financial aid to survivors of domestic abuse. Her brothers had established it in her name, and the funds recovered from the total liquidation of Marcus and Jessica's assets, along with the massive damages won in the civil suit, had been its first donation. She was on the phone, her voice confident and kind. "No, you are not overreacting. We will have one of our lawyers meet you this afternoon. Yes, you and your children will be safe tonight." She hung up, a small, satisfied smile on her face. She was no longer a victim. She was an advocate. A protector. She looked at the photos on her desk. One was of her 3 brothers, all of them grinning, at the foundation's opening gala. She turned her leather chair and looked at the beautiful modern bassinet beside her desk. In it, her son, Leo, was sleeping peacefully, his tiny hand curled around her finger. She was wealthy. She was powerful. She was independent. She had won, 100%. She gently stroked his cheek, her heart full of a peace she had never thought possible. "It's just us, little one," she whispered. "We're safe now, and we are free." If this story of strength and survival moved you, please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and share this video with anyone who may need a reminder of their own power. Your voice matters, and we have so many more stories to tell.